Hi folks. Bored already? How was the other talks? Did you enjoy? Let's try to make this talk a little bit interactive. So before I go into it, by the way, that is a very clickbaity title. I added that because I thought it will gain attraction. But anyways, before we start the talk, how many of you folks use just plain CSS in your day-to-day life? Just plain CSS, nothing else.
Is Tailwind covered as plain CSS?
No. It's a utility framework. So I see two guys. Who of you guys use style components अपने project में? Style components. Okay. Good. And Tailwind? Production पे? Production पे? Okay. Very good. Okay, cool. That's ठीक है. So based on number of hands I see, I think style components is the most famous among all the devs. And ठीक है. Then you folks will definitely enjoy the talk. Cool. Let's start with some memes. So we all know कि हम लोग front-end developers हैं, लेकिन हमें CSS नहीं आता है. ठीक है. This is the meme like that only. We know HTML, we know JS, but CSS में सब हक देते हैं. And in the end, when you don't know how to make change, the thing that works is not important. I have used it. Everybody has used it. We all know it. But anyways, ठीक है. Let's start a little bit of history of CSS. थोड़ा जान लेते हैं. So 1996 CSS1 was launched. I was born in 96. Good. I can see websites and at least थोड़ा सा styling था. Good. So I think CSS2 was launched in 98 and तब it added support for media queries, which was nice. मतलब 98 से media queries का support था. Still our websites are not responsive, but okay. So after that, I could not find a very good references के CSS3 कब आया था. It was mostly after CSS2 was launched, they just refined it over the years and they added more stuff. There was a working draft. I could not find a correct reference. So I assume that after 98 and between 2006, there was CSS3 was launched. थोड़ी animations भी आ गए थे इस time पे थोड़े से. And then in 2006, SAS was launched. Anybody have any idea of SAS? Good. SAS was a little bit more, I would say कि it added programming to your CSS, which was not possible before. उसमें mixins आ गए थे, functions and all those things happened in SAS. It made writing reusable CSS much easier with SAS. And then 2011 Bootstrap. I'm pretty sure every front-end developer has used Bootstrap. By the way, it was made by Twitter, if you don't know. Twitter was the one which launched Bootstrap. It was an internal project and then they open sourced it for everybody. And then 2011 के बाद something happened in the front-end ecosystem. There was a rise of JavaScript frameworks like 2010 में I think Node.js was launched in 2009. उसके बाद से everybody began making everything in JavaScript. चाहे तुम्हारा native app हो, web app हो, सब कुछ बनाना चालू कर दिया. Before that, websites were very static. Like एक दो पेज रहेंगे. There must be something तुम्हारा personal portfolio website रही होगी. But there was no web apps as such. The web was not as expanded. But after that, after 2009, there were a lot of frameworks. There was Ember.js, Knockout, React 2013 में आया था, by the way. 2014 में Vue आया था. 2012-11 में Angular आ गया था. I know everybody hates Angular, but ठीक है. It's okay. So when these frameworks were launched, everybody was very excited because it made writing web apps very easy. And everybody thought कि चलो क्यों ना हम लोग styling भी JavaScript से करते हैं. Because it made sense at that time, like having your styles also in JavaScript. The biggest problem with CSS was कि you had to maintain, so many different CSS files. So उस वक्त, style components, it gave birth to style components because of all these frameworks. Style components is a CSS and JS solution. It made writing styles very easy and maintaining styles. It was scoped to your component, so you don't have to worry about not important और वो सब चीज़ों का tension नहीं था. And then 2019 में Tailwind CSS आया, which I'm not a big fan of. But ठीक है, it also made writing CSS very easy, I would say. It gave rise to atomic CSS, one class for one functionality. Right? If you have ever seen Tailwind, text, 2XL जो भी है उनकी class रहती है. If you have seen the source code feature, it is just one simple. It has just one rule in it. So it was very atomic. It was very fast to set up, and then it divided a lot of opinions. A lot of controversy happened. But yeah, in 23, StyleX was launched. जो अभी, by the way, before this talk, anybody had heard of StyleX? Okay. Good, nice. ठीक है. So what is StyleX? By the way, मैंने लिखा नहीं, copy paste किया मैंने website से उनके. But I'll just go over this, ठीक है? So it's a library built by Meta, and they claim that it is powering Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook.com. I actually checked WhatsApp. It is actually styling some parts of their app. I think they're in the process of migrating it, but I can see StyleX references in the code base, in the network calls basically. So it's a scalable library. Atomic CSS में minimize हो जाता है उसका output, which is similar to Tailwind. It is very fast. So StyleX does not really it does not inject your styles at runtime. It compiles your styles and it adds a CSS file, and फिर वो classes के through it calls them. So it does not inject anything on runtime. So that's why it's fast. It's composable. You can apply styles conditionally on this. अपने condition लगा के तुम styles डाल सकते हो. Similar to what style components also do. And it's type safe, which is one of the cool new features. You can actually add type guards in your styles, ताकि you prevent people from applying styles which you don't want basically. So it's a good feature, I would say. ठीक है. Any questions till now before I go into demo? Does anybody have any question about StyleX? समझ में आ रहा है? कुछ मैं बहुत fast जा रहा हूँ. Should I slow down? ठीक है. I'll show us some demo on this. What I won't, so this is what I'll focus on demo. What I won't show in the demo is how to integrate StyleX. बहुत चिंदी है. मैंने copy paste किया था. So you can see on their website, it is very easy to integrate it. So I won't focus on the integration. What I'll focus on is how we can do styling with StyleX. StyleX का API बहुत simple है, ज़्यादा कुछ नहीं है. Type safe styles. And I'll also show the final build जिसमें StyleX inject होता है. And if there is time left, I can show you keyframe animations, which is also a very small thing. Cool. Let's get into it. It's good enough. So this is a very small page running on module CSS में लिखा है I guess ये. And let's try to make this work in StyleX. So I've already integrated StyleX in my browser, in my application, and all I need to do is just import. We import this, we get access to the entire API of StyleX, and let's say I want to add styles, right? So it's very simple. It's as simple as just calling create, and you open an object, and then it basically tells you to create another object inside of it. Let's say you want to target the main class right here. So by the way, the CSS for this is right here. So let's say ये container है, okay. So basically this is the CSS for the main class, right? If I let me remove this so that you guys can see what will happen if it's not there. So yeah, so it just shifts up. There is not enough styling, I think, because issues be out there. But yeah, we'll try to make sure we copy the same thing and apply it using StyleX. Cool. So I'll create an object main. I'll just copy this here, and I have a extension installed which will convert this into a component CSS. If I just press this, cool. So it's converted into a camel casing. This is how I think style components also work. If you don't know, उसमें भी ऐसे camel casing रहता है. And yeah, I've applied it here. And in order to, so this is created a style object, which StyleX says it's a styled object basically. And अगर मुझे ये अपने, if I want to apply this to any of the components, it is as simple as just opening an object, spreading it across with this sort of API, and then you call something like props. This is one of the APIs of StyleX, and यहाँ पे you pass your style. Sorry, you pass your StyleX dot, and you have to call that method. You have to make sure that the same object is going through. So then main. Cool. This is as simple as applying a style, and if I go back to my page, it has centered it correctly. It is governed correctly. If I inspect this to show you folks, so yeah, in the main class you can see that this is how StyleX does it. It has the concept of atomic CSS, so every individual classes have individual things, right? Justify content, align items, right? It has created individual classes, and it applies it to your JSX element basically. So a very basic example, right? This is basically, there are many other things which you can basically do in this, but okay, we'll come back to that. But anybody have any confusion with this syntax? All comfortable? Very simple. मजा आ रहा है? ठीक है. Let's try to make another, let me add one more thing actually. There is this hover feature which I've added in, like CSS. Let's see how we can, transfer the same thing using StyleX, right? So let me see. So you can see that, like on hover, this changes the color of, this changes the text color, right? We want to implement the same thing using StyleX. Let's see. First I'll have to convert this. This might take a little bit more time, but take it. I'm going to create an object called click me. Okay. Hover me. I do the same concept as what is here, so I'll just copy this code here from here and apply it here. Pass instead of that, pass. I think now if you see, there is no, I think no animation be. Okay, cool. It applied. Make sure it's there. Thick, cool. Let's try to add that hover feature. So in StyleX, if you want to add something like a hover feature on this, you basically just add this hover thing here. You can add it directly into your style object, and you can pass anything you want. So let's say if I want to just copy the entire thing here, right? Let's hope this works. Cool. I was worried because मैं खाली कर रहा था तो मैं से गड़बड़ हो गई. But anyways, it is as simple as adding these. So we can add all sort of like I think these are called pseudo selectors. I get confused every time. But anyways, you can add this hover, you can add active, everything inside this main object, and it will work seamlessly. Like I spent around like 10 minutes getting this set up. It was as simple as drop in. And people who have style components ka thoda bhi idea, this is very similar. The syntax is extremely similar to that. Cool. Okay, let's move to another. We'll move to another demo. Right here, the main focus of the demo should be one. I'll try to demo how type safety works in this, and second, I'll try to show how we can conditionally add styles as well to this, right? So just assume, so these are two kind of buttons, right? Primary and danger. If anybody of you have worked with design systems, you know that there are many variants of button that can have, right? So let's try to design this from scratch. Like I have a common button component here. Okay, we'll try to add all these things here. Okay, so this is a common button component. You can see that it has a StyleX object where I have added just the base font size and padding, right? There is a text component, there is a text prop which I taken, and that just renders the text inside this. I'm applying the StyleX style here, right? So let's try to let's try to, at least the first thing should be, let's try to add different colors for primary and danger, and we'll make sure that it is customizable, right? So let's see. So if you guys don't know, there's something, if you have worked with design system, there's something called as variants, right? I think many of you have done it. So let's try to add a variant. I'll make sure that the variant is only primary and danger. Cool. This makes sure I'll make sure that this is optional. You don't have to pass it, right? I'll accept variants here, and if nobody has passed anything, I'll add that as a primary variant, right? So cool. I'll add a primary. One of the things that StyleX recommends is कि if you are creating like a button component like this, I will change this to base, right? So this is the base style. This is going to be applied regardless of your variant, right? So even if you have seen design systems, if there's a button, there's always a base style which is applied to all the buttons. The only thing that changes maybe the outline, the background color, or stuff like that, right? So I'll change this to base or default, whatever you want. I think base makes sense, and I'll add it here as base. And let's add primary. Okay. So I'll add a background color. Okay, I'll add a background color. Let's say our primary color is blue, right? We'll make sure we add that. And for danger, I'll add a background color of red, which is pretty self-explanatory. So let's add a background color of red. Cool. So we have created two variants, primary and danger. And the default variant is primary. So now let's see how we can add that here, right? So styles.props, it just does not accept one argument. You can pass in multiple arguments, right? So we can ask styles.base, and I'll also pass styles dot. So I'll pass the variant actually, which we have defined here, basically the variance, right? So by default, it will be primary, right? So it will pick up the primary style here and it will apply it later, right? So if I go here, okay, let me add something else also here. It's looking very ugly. Border. Okay, cool. It is looking way better. Oh, one more thing actually. Cool. So now we can see that sorry, I've not even show you where it is getting. So this is the code where it is getting, like I'm rendering it, right? So this is the primary text, this is the danger. So let's see if we pass variance as danger here, right? So we want this to be danger, right? So see, it was actually that simple to just implement primary and danger in a very, very easy format, right? We just created that, so that was one way of, adding variance. Now, we must have also seen that, sometimes you want to basically have the same variant, but you want the size of the button to be bigger, right? Sometimes you want it to be bigger or smaller, depending on the use case, right? So let's add one more prop to it. We'll call it is large, maybe, right? And by default, it will be false. Okay. This will be a boolean. So here, let me just put that here. Cool. So based on what the I can add another class here, large, right? And I will say that the font size is, let's say, 3 rem, right, instead of 2, right? And I can add a condition here. So this props API is highly custom. It's very like flexible, right? You can add a condition here, something like is large, and if it's large is true, we can apply the style. We can apply styles dot large, right? So let's come back here. So now nothing is happening because we have not passed it, right? Let me pass is large to our primary variant, right? We can just add it here. Okay, I think I have not made it. Cool. Right. So you can see that it has become bigger slightly than the danger one, right? So it was that easy to actually add a conditional style here as well. All I did was just accepted that boolean and I just basically applied it. So props, the StyleX API, which is props, it basically gets everything which we have passed it, and it composes into one style and it applies it. And StyleX is very simple. StyleX में ऐसा होता है कि there is no specificity issue. The last style always wins. That is the concept what StyleX follows. The last style will always win. So आपका जो भी last style है, it will always win. Cool. Now one last thing that I want to show in this is how we can manipulate the style using the style object, right? So let me show you that. So let's say you want to, you want this button to be very highly customizable, right? So there is a type which StyleX exports, right? So let's say we are accepting something called as style also, okay? And it is also a sorry. Let's make sure that it is also optional. So I'll first of all I'll just pass it here, okay, as style, okay? And let's call it custom style just to be a little bit different. Naming is hard, guys. Naming is hard. Anyways, cool. So now I've accepted a prop called custom style. Now basically this will allow me to customize this button however I want. I mean, in an ideal real world, you don't want to do this. If you're using a design system, you don't want people to customize it. But let's say if there was a, if you wanted to customize something, basically now here I can create a, let's say I want to create another style, right? So button, custom button, I would say. Right, and I want the, let's say I want the height of that button to be maybe 100 pixels, right? So let's say in the primary button, I will pass style, custom style, my bad, and I'll pass this object, right? StyleX dot custom button. Okay. So now I have passed a custom style from the component where I am basically rendering that common component, right? So now this will go back to here. It will basically come here and it will apply it right here. So did it work? Wait, no, I don't think so. I think it did, right? I think because it is large star, that's why it's not basically rendering. Wait, let me remove that. Cool, but I can see that, you know, like it has applied that height of 100 pixels here, right? And it basically is getting transferred there. So yeah, that's how you can basically, you know, like pass styles from, basically pass styles using, you know, StyleX. One last thing to notice here will be that, you know, I have not mentioned anything about, type safety, right? And that comes from directly here also. So let's say you want to make sure that this button component, if we are exposing this style prop here, you want them to only customize, let's say, the margin, right? So I can do something like this here. So let's say I want them that only margin should be customizable. That's it. So I think it's just string, right? So if I come here, it will immediately start giving me errors, right? It's a very long error. TypeScript does not make it easy to read these errors. But what it says is basically कि अगर मैं height pass कर रहा हूँ, it will always fail because we have specified in our, you know, TypeScript configuration that we want only margin to be customizable. So if let's say I just give your, यहाँ पे आके मैं margin दूँगा, see, it's happy. It started become happy suddenly, right? And like it starts applying this. Anyways, so that was about it, right? I think one last thing that I want to show you is, you know, how this whole thing bundles, right? I'll quickly stop this. I'll run the bundler. Actually, let me delete the old code first. So it creates a build, and what so if I open the next thing here, and if I go to static and CSS, you see that it has created a, I'll open this in, wait, I'm opening this here. Static, see this looks very ugly at this point. Let me beautify this. Hope internet works, okay, perfect. Is this the one? I don't see. I think it will be this one. Cool. So as you can see, it basically injects all your styles in this, you know, CSS file which gets generated at build time. So there is no runtime injection. It basically generates these files, and these are just basically called from your, you know, like file. If I search this in your build folder, it will be somewhere called, if I Anyways, it's not. I think there will be something else. But anyways, this entire file is generated when you build it. This comes from the integration. There's an integration of StyleX with Next.js also. So that's how they basically build all those CSS for you. It is there in the CSS file. It is not कोई runtime injection नहीं होता है. You don't see any flash of unstyled contents in this. It basically works out of like normal CSS की तरह काम करता है. And yeah, that's it. Any questions till now? I have something more to say, but any doubts about this whole? Did you guys understand how StyleX basically operates? The two main APIs are just this. So talking about the APIs, StyleX की API बहुत simple है. There are many other APIs, but the main API is this create, which helps you create styles, and the other API is props, which helps you inject it. So StyleX is also component agnostic. You don't have to use React with it. तुम Vue भी use कर सकते हो. मेरे कंपनी में Vue use होता है. तो if I push for it, I can use it with Vue, Solid, any other library which you have, which you know. So cool. Coming back to the presentation, I think, and then no questions till now. Anybody's okay with everything?
Build की गाने CSS की.
Sorry?
CSS की build.
हाँ, sure.
Font 2 rem. Okay.
Yes.
और 3 रैम. अगर मैंने फिर से 3 रैम यूज़ किया दूसरे कंपोनेंट पे, so एक और 3 रैम जनरेट होगा.
No, this is atomic CSS, right? It will try to make sure that it is highly reusable. ऐसे Tailwind भी वही करता है. Like if you have two different, if there is a rule which says 3M, right? So it will try to. Like I'm not 100% sure how StyleX does it. ठीक है, but according to their website they use atomic CSS. So वो लोग एक रूल बनाते हैं and वो रूल को रीयूज करते हैं हर जगह.
मुझे भी रोल करना.
हाँ मतलब they make this on build time and they reuse it. They try to reuse it. उनका logic रहेगा code में somewhere. But don't quote me on it, okay? It is very new. I have not gone through the source code. It might do something else. I don't know. Cool. ठीक है. So coming back to the main question that I had in the first slide, is StyleX a Tailwind killer or a style components alternative? By the way, that was clickbaity, ठीक है. So in my opinion, it is not. It is not a Tailwind killer. It is more like a style components alternative because I think I have 2-3 points mentioned किए हैं. So Tailwind, if you know, it's a utility framework and it is very framework agnostic. तुम उसको vanilla HTML भी use कर सकते हो. You just need to import that CDN file and वो काम करेगा. Style components के लिए तुम्हें JS चाहिए ही चाहिए, no matter what. And StyleX also has their hypothesis कि you use JS, but it is way less, like there's no runtime injection. So it is slightly better than style components, but that's up to you. So I feel like it is more like a style components alternative in my opinion. And if you are using style components, StyleX is just like कोई learning curve है ही नहीं. मतलब तुम सीधा मतलब use कर सकते हो. Just start off with it. There might be some issues because it is very new, production ready. क्या पता है कि नहीं है. But since Meta claims that they are using it in WhatsApp or Facebook, so I'm assuming it is. But yeah, that was it. I think yeah. बहुत छोटा talk था, right? I think मैंने बहुत जल्दी खत्म कर दिया. Any other questions?